Hello and welcome to Fratello Talks. I'm your host Nacho, and today I'm joined by my colleagues
RJ
and
Thomas.
And today we have a special episode for you. We are celebrating 100 episodes in the bag with a Q&A. So we're going to be answering some of the audience's questions that we've been gathering over the last several episodes. But of course, before we do that, let's get into wrist check. RJ, what is on your wrist today?
For this very special occasion, I'm wearing
this golden jubilee.
Exactly. I'm wearing my Gold Speedmaster today.
Cool. It doesn't usually take a special occasion for you to wear that, but,
I wore
but it's
yesterday
good.
as well,
It's good that you came prepared. That's great. And Thomas, what dial color are you wearing today?
For this very special occasion, I am wearing the VPC Type 37HW in forest green.
Perfect.
Yep.
Very, very nice.
And how about you?
And I'm wearing, also not really a surprise, my Pelagos FXD, the black dial version on a sort of a grayish, dark gray, sort of single pass strap from cheapest NATO straps, or CNS watch bands, I think they're called at this point. So anyway, without further ado, let's jump into the questions. RJ, I think these first couple of questions go hand in hand. They were submitted by Lucky Lukey and somebody called Anne Henny. Maybe we'll dispense with the names actually going into it, but maybe not. Let's see. So the first question is, what is the story of Fratello and its name? And the second question is, congrats on 20 years of Fratello. You've become my favorite and most reliable watch publication / outlet. What is Fratello's story? How did it come about, grow, and what is the vision for the future?
Ooh.
So I'll let you take it away there.
30 minutes with that, but
Yes.
let's not.
No, we got quite a few ones. So
I get a question about the name very often, Fratello. It means it's Italian and it means brother, and that's basically my last name in Dutch, which is broer. But it's so difficult to pronounce for anyone else not speaking Dutch,
right,
or Belgian or South African, that I came up with Fratello because you pronounce it the same everywhere. It's a bit like the Rolex philosophy.
True.
And actually, it started as an online shop for watches.
Okay.
So when I was a student, I bought watches, vintage watches, and I had them restored and repaired, and then sold them. But at some point, I needed to get a real job because I have to pay a mortgage and so on. So I had the domain anyway. So that's also why it's Fratello Watches.
Okay, right.
And now it's also Fratello.com later on, of course. But I had the domain, so I stopped selling watches basically, and I had a normal job. And then I came with the idea to write about watches. I was very active on forums like Watcher Seek and Time Zone, and then I saw a lot of questions recurring.
Right.
Often, when you get new users, you see the same questions recurring. So I think I went through a few cycles now. And let's just start a blog, which was quite new at the time in 2004, and write about watches and share some nice links or stories or whatsoever. And so that's how it started. And I already had a domain name, Fratello Watches, for my previous endeavor. And so I just used that, and I installed WordPress, which is a very well-known CMS. I think it was even WordPress 1.0 back then. And yes, it started from there in 2004. And at first, it was really a blog, like a blog was supposed to be, like come up with links to other websites and to share interesting stuff. And later on, it became more of sharing thoughts and ideas, and at some point, watch reviews. That took a little while because watch brands were not so keen on working with digital media.
Right, I was going to say, back then it was all print, basically.
Yeah, so there was print, and there was me.
Yeah,
and there were not many others, and only a few years later you saw that others started to do so as well, like Hodinky and Blog to Watch and so on.
Right.
And I think more and more of these titles went online. Also, existing print titles went online or tried to go online. And when brands started to embrace, it became bigger and bigger. So I think that was around 2008, 2009. Went to Basel World, did all the appointments with a lot of brands. You had to explain a lot, what are you doing and so on. But at some point it really went well, and I think brands, they see us like they see us today as serious media. That took a while, but they embraced it at some point. Basically all the brands, except a few exceptions. And yeah, it went on from there, and slowly it turned in from a blog into a online magazine.
Yes.
With writers, with photographers, with video now today, and with podcast, a bit of e-commerce. So that's basically the Fratello story. Before that is a different story. I didn't start it just because I want to start a business. I started it because I collect and I love watches, of course. But the future of Fratello is also interesting because we had some endeavors in e-commerce, and we will keep doing e-commerce, of course. Yeah. But we are media, and that's also how we want to be portrayed. That's our future. We want to write about watches, make videos on watches, podcasts, and so on. So we are really a media outlet.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think that answers the question.
Yeah, in a nutshell.
Yes, excellent, perfect. And then the next question, this one can apply to basically all of us. It's from the Fourth Derivative, and they say, what are the most surprising things you've learned from doing 100 episodes? I think I've never been made more aware of my... thinking about it now, but the way that I speak, and people give you some feedback in the comments, right? It's the way that you speak or the way that you react to the way people speak or when people speak, and yeah, it turns into, you get a little bit of feedback. You also become a lot more aware of not trying to not talk over each other. Yep. That's something that I don't think that we're all still super, professionally competent at, but we're getting there. I think that it's something we become aware of. But yeah, and then you also just realize that somehow, I mean, the idea behind Fratello Talks was to basically have the conversations that we have in the office. Usually a group of us will have a topic in mind and we'll be talking about it. And that's why it always felt very natural to do this podcast. And that's the way that it's felt for 100 episodes. We've obviously had some guests on, which has also been an interesting experience. And yeah, but that's basically... for me, I would say it's been surprising how well these conversations have then done, in the face of the public, and how people have sort of embraced it and tuned in, and for a lot of people, it's become a real go-to podcast. So that's been a really positive thing, I would say. Do you guys have anything surprising you've learned in 100 episodes?
Well, the first thing is, I guess, to learn to forget the microphones and the camera and just talk the way we would. And sometimes that means derailing a little bit, especially when it's Lex and I on the couch. But I think that's also just fun, just to be the way you are. And also, like, indeed, the way you speak. Like, I've noticed, like, I'm really often in my low register, speaking like this. And then I almost sound like mumbling, like when Lex goes off on one of his monologues, it's like, wah, 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 and then I come in, ooh, ooh. So that's something you really become conscious of because of doing it and hearing it back. So yeah, right. I agree with that for sure.
Yeah, for me, it's the English. So when you write, you have more time to think about things. And you can take your time to write a nice sentence. And when you speak, and English is not your native language, it becomes a little bit more difficult because you have to do the translation real time, basically. Yeah. And sometimes it goes a bit wrong with translations or what you meant to say and how it ended up. But because I also sometimes join a Dutch podcast, Mannen van de Tijd, shout out. And that's much easier for me. Yeah. But there I notice when I listen back to a podcast, I talk really fast in Dutch. And that's something I never really realized. Yeah. And I don't know how the English is, but how it is in English. But in Dutch, I notice it's weird to hear yourself talk that quickly because you don't realize that you do. Yeah. But for this podcast, I think it's, like you say, Thomas, it's the camera you need to get used to. But at some point, you just forget that Matthijs is there making weird signs, waving, and
obscene gesture.
Exactly, that you don't see on camera.
Hard to ignore, yeah.
But I think it's a fun format.
For sure.
100%. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think another thing to say is that we don't really edit these episodes. Like it's just
one go.
It's a one cut, like just one take.
Unlike the other podcast we have, Fratello on Air from Balázs and Mike.
Yes.
They edit for hours.
Yeah.
They can't do it in one shot.
And most podcasts do tend to edit.
I don't know.
No, I don't know. But most podcasts tend to have a bit of editing. We have editing when like someone knocks on the doors trying to deliver a package, someone's phone goes off, that kind of thing. Like when it's really like something that's just good to get out of there. But I think we've had like 2 or 3 of those in 100 episodes. So I'll take it. Right. That feels like a good ratio for us.
Yeah.
So perfect. So on to the next question, which is from the cool Chris, who says. Can you name examples of watches that completely changed you completely changed your mind about? May it be positive or negative. It may be over time or simply once you saw it in the metal, and maybe even just your taste has changed and evolved over time. Thanks again, and keep up the good work.
I think I've been doing this for too long to be really surprised and turn the other way around.
Right.
What I do want to say is that, and I think that applies to all of us basically. That sometimes if you see a watch in a press release, when we get it from a brand in our mailbox, and you see the PDF and some pictures, that you can be surprised in the flash, in a positive and negative way.
Definitely.
And that's sometimes still surprising to me, that the pictures can be so different from the actual product.
Yeah.
Again, in a positive and in a negative way. As for brands, I have to say, many years ago, I was contemplating either a Royal Oak or a Nautilus.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave the Nautilus a try. I could borrow it from one of our colleagues for a week or so. And I realized it's not for me.
Okay.
Well, the years before, I was so much into the Nautilus watch. And I realized this is not for me. I need a Royal Oak. So I went in the end for the Royal Oak. And now I see, since the last few years, or several years, the craze for these watches. And I simply don't get it. I don't think the Nautilus is that good of a watch.
Right.
But that's something like very personal, of course. Yeah. But I see the craze and the hype, and I think, it's really a hype.
But I think in that way, you're also able to look past that and sort of say, this is for me, this is not for me.
Exactly.
Because I think a lot of people will look at it and just say, oh, the Nautilus, it is great. Everybody says it's great, so it has to be great.
And the same for the Daytona. I think that's even crazier, that people they have the Daytona is on their number 1 position on their wish list.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
And it was for me as well many years ago. And then I got it, and I looked at it, I said, no, this is not for me. I really don't like it.
Fair enough.
It's so these kind of things are sometimes still surprising, but I've seen many of those. So those kind of surprises are a little bit off. But with new watches, if we receive a press kit and then we see the watch, then sometimes you're positively surprised, and
definitely
sometimes you're not.
Exactly. I don't think we'll get into the details of that unless, Thomas, you have anything, any examples that come to mind?
Yeah, most recently it was actually an article that was published yesterday or earlier last week.
Yeah, yesterday, I think.
My review of a 1959 Rolex Submariner.
5508.
The 5508, which on paper, you would assume that it's really dainty, tiny and everything. And then I put it on a wrist and it was like, whoa, it has all this presence. And
it really does, yeah.
I compared it to Luka Modric, the footballer in the article. I say it asserts its presence way beyond its size.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing happens all the time where you're like, specifications are such poor representations of a watch. Even pictures and specs, you can still be so surprised. Like, put it on the wrist and it's like, oh, that's actually really good, or absolutely really not. Or
for me, along those lines, it has to be the Panerai that I then later exchanged for another watch. But picking up that PAM 55, I had this preconceived notion based purely on like pop culture that guys who wear Panerais, it's like Stallone and Schwarzenegger and that kind of thing.
But you fit right into that list.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. The creatine kids. And actually wearing it, I found it to be this very charming, very kind of. It was a great watch. I had a lot of fun with it, and
then you sold it.
And then I sold it. But every now and then I kind of miss it.
Yeah, a little bit. So see you watching them.
Yeah.
So.
But hey, we'll see. I don't know if I'll ever if I'll be very quickly coming back to Panerai.
You're a Breitling collector now, so
or so the.
It's also sometimes it's also something that goes in waves, right? I was very much into Omega at first, then I left the brand a little bit. I was more into Rolex for a long time, and then I left that brand again, and then Omega came back. Same with AP and so on. Breguet, I didn't like it at first at all, and now I'm really looking forward to add one more.
Yeah, it's fun.
So it goes in waves, basically. Yeah.
And it's great to allow yourself to change your mind. I think that's
of
the
course.
great thing. It's strong opinions, loosely held, and that's the way to go to go about enjoying the world of watches. So here we have a question which is a little bit of a rant as well. It comes from Christian Trinka 3140, who says, why are lugs ignored by every brand? You have such a small canvas when you're designing a watch, thousands of hours put into the movement and the dial and the case, but what about the lugs? They tend to just be boring extensions of the case every time. So what do we think? What do we think about lugs? Are lugs being ignored?
Love lugs.
You love lugs?
Well, I think honestly, there's a historical reason for it, in the fact that it all started with welding a bunch of lugs onto a pocket watch.
That's true.
So there's a historical reason why they may not be considered part of a design. But then I would agree. But there's several parts I think neglected that way. I mean, the part between the lugs, the end link, is also usually.
I think the bracelet
ignored.
is often an
Bracelet,
afterthought.
Yeah. There's a lot of watch parts that I feel many brands get wrong.
We do get a lot of comments about lugs on the Breguet Classique, for example, that they are too long. Nomos, of course. But are they boring? I don't think the lugs of a Breguet are boring. If you look at it from the profile, it's very nicely done.
Yeah.
With Nomos, I kind of agree that they're a little bit too long.
Yeah.
But it also depends a bit on the size of your wrist.
Yeah.
But often, it might be an afterthought for some brands, but definitely not all brands, I feel.
Yeah, compared to the past, right, where like in the 1940s and stuff, you had these super crazy sort of Art Deco.
Yeah, these teardrop lugs and so on.
Like Corne de Vache, that kind of stuff. Yeah, those are cool. But at the same time, we have like Omega's Lyre lugs, which are brilliant. And
the dog leg lugs were nice from that Genta came up with.
Oh, for sure. For the pipe hand constellations. Yeah, those are cool.
Yeah.
So we've seen a lot, but I think...
Could it also be that we've had the sports watch trend for a long time, and they're a little bit more basic, and now we're moving back to the shaped watches, the more design-heavy watches, and we might see more creative lugs again?
For sure. Even though a lot of those are also lugless, right? Like the Denison or Disco Volante watches, like those just do away with them altogether. But it's a fair point, and I think it's always good to pay attention to the lugs. Don't neglect the lugs. Perfect. And then the next question is from Tafate Fe Music, who says, linked to the episode on the Patek Philippe Cubitus, what is your favorite watch with a shaped movement?
LUC Heritage Grand Cru.
Okay, cool.
Tonneau
Solid
shaped
choice.
Tonneau shaped case, tonneau shaped micro rotor movement. Looks really neat.
Yeah, off the cuff, I can think of, and having recently seen it at the GPHG exhibit in Geneva, the burner on.
Yeah,
that's very impressive. Yeah. In the metal, it's completely wild. That movement is really beautiful.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
it's really nice.
Yeah. I think it's something we don't see of enough, and perhaps less so than creativity in the lug department. I think that shape movements are a great thing, and we could definitely use more of those. So cool, perfect. So this is from HRM.H, who says, do you think we'll see more integration between traditional watchmaking and smartwatches in the future?
No, and in fact, I think smartwatches are going to be phasing out as soon as we move towards more integrated technologies, the AR stuff. AR stuff. I think smartwatches are just an intermediate technology.
I think that for people who use them as like wearable tech is one thing, but almost calling it a watch these days feels a little bit like a watch is just one of the many functions of the Swiss Army knife that is an Apple Watch, right? Mm-hmm. That's just like a word that's there to help people understand by referencing something that already exists.
Some brands tried, Some brands they try to combine, like I think Montblanc at like a clasp with a bit of smart technology.
Yeah.
But it never worked. Tag Heuer is it looks nice. I have to say the
Tissot
Tag
has the
Heuer,
T-touch
but
as well. Yeah. It feels like at some point people are just gonna move away from that, and so I don't know. I mean, we could be wrong, but our guess seems to be.
But as soon as you have everything sort of overlaid in lenses or in glasses or whatever, then why would you still wear a smartwatch?
True. Perfect. Well, there you have it. This is a question from Gerard Cortez, 5943, who says, and the winner of the best new watch between 1,500 and 2,500 euros. Award goes to...
Oh. I have to think about
You
this.
can't put the crown on your own head, Thomas. I know where you're going. You can't say
I was thinking maybe if I just put it a little bit like this. And,
You can't vote for yourself. Sorry, this is not the
Okay.
GPHG.
Okay.
That was a bit of a dig there.
Between
but,
1,500 and 2.5K.
yes.
Ooh, for this year. Oh. Is it... I don't know the price, actually.
What is
the new Oris diver without 65.
I think
It's 24.50 or something?
Yeah.
it might just make it. Yeah, I think it
And
might
otherwise,
just
you
make
just ask for discount, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just
But-
talk to your AD.
Yeah,
or get it on the strap and not on the bracelet.
yeah.
I don't know.
I really
Buy it
like that
pre-owned.
watch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
that's
nice.
a cool one.
Yeah.
That's a solid pick. Yeah, I don't know. I'm also kind of struggling. There's so many watches that we see in that price segment that it's hard to pin one down. There's a lot of good stuff out there in that price range. So yeah, I don't know. I think we've already talked about a lot of them.
Yeah.
But the Oris, we can all agree to give it the
yeah.
award to that Oris
Yeah.
if we're right about the price. So fingers crossed on that
And
one.
otherwise, discount.
Solid answer.
Yeah, edit it out. Oh no, we don't do that. So anyway, and the next question from Leo Crespi, who says, if you had to keep only one watch from your collection, I assume, which one would it be?
The gray one.
The gray one. You haven't worn that one for a while. What happened?
Yeah, it's just it's out actually. It's on press reviews. So
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
RJ, do you know?
I think the watch that I'm wearing today, Gold
Yeah.
Speedmaster. Yeah.
That has kind of become your signature.
Yeah.
Like that's.
I wear it
think,
a lot, and I really love it. And I don't baby it.
Yeah.
It's just my watch.
Yeah.
And
well, it's a Speedy and it's made of solid gold.
yeah.
So
What more do you want?
What more do you want? Exactly. Exactly. I think for me, it would probably have to be my Seamaster. I really like that watch.
Yeah.
The SMP 300, the 2254 or 2254. Yeah, same thing. That's the one that for me is just so versatile. It's steel. It's got a bracelet. That's why the FXD in that case would miss out on the pick, is because it is nice to have the bracelet option.
I agree.
And I think it's a watch you can kind of
Yeah.
It's my gotta watch. That's
fun.
the one.
Some of the team really have signature watches like that. Could have been called the RJ.
Yeah.
2254 is really 100% Nacho. Dan with his Santos.
Oh, of
That's
course, yeah.
like his
The
signature.
I call him
Dantos.
Santos Dan. The
Yeah.
Dantos.
The Dantos. No, true, but I
Maybe
think
Lex
that's,
with the Grand Seiko.
yeah, true.
Quartz,
Yeah.
I
model.
think he hasn't changed the battery on that yet, though. That's why we haven't seen him wear it for a while.
It's Andy
But
Warhol.
once it comes back, exactly, he is.
Yeah.
He is 1010 all day, every day. Cool. So for the next question, it comes from DSKA 2294. I don't know if that's a reference.
What are all these numbers that
Yeah, I
people
know.
use?
The people's usernames are a little bit weird, but hey. Anyway, and the question is, if you could only have one watch amongst your existing collection, what would it be and why? So we've had that already. But here's another one. How important is changing up the straps to making a watch not get old? And what are other tricks that you keep getting excited about for your existing watches? I think changing straps is, at least to me, I do it very often. I think it's
I
a
never
great
do
way
it.
to breathe new life into a watch or to just change the look of something. It keeps things fresh.
Sometimes I just stop wearing a certain watch,
Okay.
put it in the safe, and then after a few weeks or month, I pick it up again, and then boom.
Yeah.
Love it again.
That does happen actually.
Yeah.
The absence makes the
Yeah.
heart grow fonder, as they say. Thomas, what's your take on changing straps?
I don't really do it that much because I'm really a bracelet kind of guy. So I'll always have them on the bracelet.
I stand alone here, but
Yeah.
I really like changing straps.
Yeah.
I do it very, very often with most of my watches, and I think that it is a great way to keep it fresh. I think putting something away for a while is also a nice way to go about it. And even like letting someone in your family borrow a watch for a while,
Whoa.
so then it's
No,
away for a bit.
no.
Don't do
Definitely
that.
not.
Okay, I would do it, but hey, anyway, that's
I know my family, man. Don't give them watches.
Can't trust them. All right, well, no worries. Let's move on to the next question, which is from TJ Duncan, and it's if you aren't traveling but you're wearing a GMT, what time zone do you typically set the GMT hand to?
I just put it on the 24-hour scale.
Okay. But
Yeah, same.
do you don't put you just set it to the
to the home time
Yeah.
on
Home
the
time.
24 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have two answers for this. Actually, no, one answer for this, which is the time that's set on my aerospace, which is Japan time. Because our copy editor, Brandon, shout out to Brandon, whom I often have quite a bit of contact with, is in Japan.
Oh, wow.
So it's nice to be able to keep track of his time zone. And
does Brandon know this?
I don't know. He does now.
Yeah?
I think he might. I think I might have mentioned it to him as well.
Okay.
And then otherwise, sometimes I'll set it to New York time because obviously most of our audience is in North America.
Yeah.
So it's good to know when everybody's waking up and getting ready to listen to the latest episode or read the latest articles.
Yeah.
So that's my two go-to time zones. Let's say. Perfect. And then. We have another question for stuckon5.10a. Speaking of strange usernames.
Okay, yeah.
As for my question, I'm curious about how you filter the propaganda, marketing, put out by brands. Is it possible to move past it and see a watch objectively, or do you find it difficult to separate the watch from whatever marketing it has been attached to?
No, I think you can definitely see it separately from any marketing stories that brands come up with. To mind comes the press releases from Grand Seiko, for example.
Oh yeah,
that it's always about the color of the trees or the mountains. When the watchmaker look through the window of their workshop, and they see the brown leaves, boom, brown dial.
Yeah,
and I think you have to look past that. And also, I think with a lot of marketing stories, when it's just a story. And I think you can put that aside. And with any story, I think we also look at the watches that we get in.
For sure.
And we try not to be an extension from the marketing department from watch brands. Although still some people feel like media, like we do these kind of things. We really try not to, because I think the marketing department should be best at this. And we should not be an extension. We should give like an opinion of our own about a certain watch. And even if we have a commercial agreement with a brand in place, we still make sure that it's our opinion, our voice, and so on. They also don't see the articles up front whatsoever. It's really our content. But sometimes you have to walk thin lines.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah,
when it comes to storytelling, but also about the watch itself. And I think more than once we also refuse to review a watch because it's just not for us. We can't really write nicely about it. And then there's
And if you have nothing really positive to say, then why bash it, right? It's a little bit like, well, then in that case, we're just not interested in it. We
give the feedback to the brand.
Yeah,
why we don't and what they. Yeah.
No need to put them on blast, in front of everybody. So I think that's one way. And then for me personally, I tend to. While I'm writing an article about a watch, if it's like a hands-on, just not look at the marketing materials. Mm-hmm. I'll maybe pull up the specs, that kind of thing. But I'll try to avoid a press release, at least when first going through the phase where you formulate your thoughts and feelings about a watch, and then maybe you go back to see what the brand itself has said, because sometimes it can be interesting to comment on that, right? And I wrote an article about the Pelagos 39 when it came out, basically disagreeing with the way that watch was marketed, saying it's a great watch and it's just the marketing there that didn't really quite do it for me. So sometimes we'll even mention it outright. So Thomas, anything to add there? Or?
Yeah, I think most of the time it's actually quite easy because a lot of these press packs, it's quite ridiculous a lot of the time, to be honest. I mean,
it's a lot.
I once had one where he's driving through the desert and a UFO comes overhead and when he looks at his wrist and whatever. And then I was like, am I really supposed to copy that or whatever? Like, come on. And that's 9 out of 10 times I feel like, okay, so they've developed a watch, send it on to some press agency that might not even be into watches at all. They concoct this weird backstory. And then it's fed to us as audio like that. And so it's really easy to punch through that and to just.
Because I also believe that these press releases are not really meant for us. We can live with a spec sheet basically because we get the watch in, we see the watch. I do believe it's more for how do you say mainstream media, just not specialized media. But
for sure, more lifestyle media.
More lifestyle media that are not that deeply into watches that need some backstory and I think it's easier for them to copy paste parts of the press release, and we don't.
It's the same reason why we tend to try and photograph watches ourselves as much as possible. because a lot of the time, even the way that the watches are shown by a brand, it tends to be okay. Usually it's more a lack of pictures that we complain about than anything, or just white background soldier shots that kind of don't give you much.
Yeah.
But that's why we sort of tend to like to photograph the watches ourselves, and that way we're able to kind of give them our own, see them as we see them, right? Also in the images.
We should come up with our own story if we get a watch in.
Yeah.
Just make up something.
I think Lex does that quite often, actually. Lex is pretty
Nice.
pretty guilty of that. Cool. We have here one very long question for the end, but stay with me. It's from 6 Arms Play. Again, usernames. Yeah. Roll
I
with
just
the
use my
punches.
own name actually on YouTube.
Yeah, true. What is your username on YouTube? You don't
I
want
think
to give
just
it away.
Robert Jan Boer.
Yeah, I think
Perhaps
so.
there is a number because I remember if there's already someone out there,
Right.
it just
right.
perhaps adds a random number.
Yeah.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. So this is a bit of a long one, but here we go. Every time I read articles about watch auctions, I've always wondered about movement maintenance and the conditions of rare vintage watches that sell at auction for 6 or even 7 figures. By sending them to the manufacturer's service center, you could risk having original parts swapped for newer ones, which could negatively impact the watch value. I feel that finding a trusty third-party watchmaker with a timepiece of such value can be really difficult as well. Could some of these watches maybe never get serviced or never get serviced again and become essentially paperweights in the future? For example, will Paul Newman's Paul Newman Daytona ever be serviced again? And it's true. I wonder what happens. Are the watches serviced by the auction house, by
No.
the auction house's watchmakers,
No.
by the brands themselves?
No. Could be.
Um,
Well, what I know is that auction houses don't service watches. They have a
Yep.
watch experts, or they claim to be often.
Right.
And some are, but they don't service watches. Sometimes watches that are being offered to the auction house by a certain someone or a brand, they could be serviced. You don't know.
Right.
But if there's no proof or no evidence that the watch has been serviced, I always have the rule for myself, then it has not been serviced. Because these services are quite expensive, and also it can be quite a bit of work, especially if it's a vintage watch. So you want to have it documented properly.
Yeah.
And if that's not the case, I don't consider it serviced. The risk is that someone serviced it who should not have been servicing it.
True.
And that's the bigger
Exactly.
issue.
Yeah.
For me, if I buy a vintage watch, I just want to have it in a technically very good condition.
Yeah.
So if a spring has been replaced, man, it better be, because those springs don't survive that long. It's like buying a car; you want a head gasket to be replaced at some point.
For sure.
It's for me, it's the external parts that should be all original in a vintage watch, like that Paul Newman. But if the movement has been serviced, I don't care that much. I assume that like certain bridges and so on will not be replaced. It's about the moving parts. It's about gears that might have worn out and so on. I hope they have been replaced.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
I think
so.
there's also a distinction to be made between just higher end vintage and these sorts of super collectibles. I don't reckon these will ever be worn again.
No.
So I don't reckon they'll be
They
serviced
end
either.
up in a safe somewhere.
I think that's
Exactly.
those are purely just an investment where it then pops up again at some point in the future and is sold for an even more crazy amount. So,
Yeah. And beware of checked by our watchmaker. It's a nice way of pretending that it's serviced, but checking.
They open it and do.
Yeah,
and they close it
exactly.
again.
Yeah.
Yep, there's a movement.
Yeah.
There's a movement.
Works. Done. Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. And we have one final question. It's another long one, and another one from Gerardo Cortez, who says, we've seen how the price and production of new watches from well-established brands has increased, while at the same time, the demand in recent times for many of these has decreased somewhat. How do you see the Swiss watch industry adjusting to this? And do you think the new and some not that new independent and micro brands like Christopher Ward, Furlan Mari, Fair, etc., are teaching the wider public to value watches instead of brands, therefore taking some of the market share that the big ones have previously held on to?
I think there's a distinction to be made there between, for instance, Christopher Ward and Furlan Mari, who are stylistically, paying homage to certain heritage brands and then doing everything they can to make it as affordable as possible, where other micro brands and independents aren't really playing that game at all. They're just trying to make something original and they might end up more affordable because they just have less overhead.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that might not be the game they're engaged in at all. And also, if you're going to focus on being the cheaper alternative, then you'll naturally have a gap between yourself and the heritage brands, which come with status and history. And whereas if you're going to be doing original stuff, then you might at some point gain recognizability and status yourself, maybe among a niche audience.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of differentiation there to be made.
There's a lot more risk, I guess, right? If you're doing your own thing, people might not like it, people might not connect to it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're doing this sort of like homage into original pipeline thing, then at first you're maybe quite successful because people are familiar with what you're doing, and then you can turn into something a little different and maybe find success.
You can't shave all micro brands over one comb.
No. No, you can't.
Dutch expression.
All right, that's
But I don't
as
think-
lost on me as it is
Yes.
on most of our viewers.
For our Dutch viewers, it might be funny.
But I don't think that's the gist of the question. I think, will it put pressure on the big brands?
Exactly.
I doubt it, because the micro brands remain
They do
for a niche audience as
yeah,
well.
I do think they will see that they lose a bit of share towards micro brands.
Yeah.
At
But
the
in
low
the-
end, especially, right?
Yeah.
The aficionado audience.
Yes, very long time ago. I think it was 2012. I visited a watch brand in Switzerland, very famous watch brand. At the time, at a not a lower end, but below 2K, let's say. And I spoke with them about the watch industry and so on. And I mentioned the brand Zinn from Germany, and they had no idea who Zinn was. That was to me. They just looked at their own brand and they didn't know what else was out there. Well, Zinn was already then a well-respected brand. So I think a lot of Swiss watch brands have been like blindsided by a lot of these micro brands.
They're definitely in a
but
bubble,
not anymore.
a lot of them.
I feel, and that's the change. I think not anymore. What I also see with certain micro brands is that they're very sympathetic because the price is right or fair or very interesting.
Yes.
But once they grow and they make it like a proper company with after sales service and the whole shebang, then they start to learn why bigger brands have to ask these much higher prices.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all about scalability. And I think if you have a very small operation, I think it's okay-ish.
Yeah.
And you can keep the prices at a certain level. But once you scale up, I think then you also are being confronted with the big brands' daily problems.
Yeah, and I think it's also a matter of the way you set up your company. Like we always get this point when a watch is slightly more expensive, there's always a commenter saying, oh, but Christopher Ward can do it for less. But then Christopher Ward is from the ground up built up to be a price fighter, basically, in everything. And that takes a very special kind of approach.
Yeah.
And it means you can do certain things really attractively price-wise, but it means you can't do other things.
Yeah.
And I think it's always a matter of weighing your interests. And I mean, if that is the most important thing to you, buy a Christopher Ward. But don't expect other brands to be able to do the same, because they don't necessarily take that route.
No, exactly.
So,
Cool. Perfect. Final question, going back to TJ Duncan. Of the regular hosts, who has the best shoe/sneaker collection and the best watch collection? I don't know. I think potentially the best watch collection might be either yours, RJ, or potentially somebody else who isn't really a regular on the podcast, Gerard. He's been on the podcast once, talking about G-Shock, I believe. And
he has a good collection.
as a regular host, it
sneakers,
must be RJ, right?
Sneakers and shoes, I think, I don't know. The only real sort of sneaker collector is
Also not on the podcast.
Is also not on. I don't think has been. Maybe on the audio podcast way back in the day.
Jorg,
Might be Jorg.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think of the people that are regularly on the show, I think RJ, you probably take the win on both.
Could be. Yeah, I have a lot of sneakers. I tend to wear my New Balances most often these days. But I have a lot of Nike Max 1, Nike Max 90, Nike 180, a lot of Nikes, some Adidas, but I'm not really an Adidas fan.
Yeah.
But I'm not into the Jordans and so on. So I know Jorg is really into Jordans
He went
and I don't know what.
Yeah.
So I stick to the Nike Max things and have some cross trainers and so on. But yeah.
I'm more of a boots guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're more boots guys. We'll go sneakers in the summer, but in winter and then of the boots, I think you probably just take the lead by a little bit, Thomas.
I don't have a pair of boots.
We got to get you a pair of
For
boots.
normal I wear my like Santoni normal shoes, but
Right,
no, never.
There's also not really like a winter here in Holland, so you don't really find
And
yourself
I don't
needing
go hiking and so on.
spelunking.
So, yeah.
You don't go spelunking. Perfect. Well, I think we can wrap it up there. That's all of our questions. So thanks, guys, for having us being here for the Q&A, and we'll leave us with a comment of the week from hrm.h.
Hey,
another username.
sounds familiar. Yeah.
Who says a titanium gray-dialed Explorer would break the internet. That's referring to our last episode where we were talking about potential future Rolex models,
Titanium gray-dialed,
or I believe 2 episodes ago by the time this goes out. But yeah, titanium gray-dialed. I don't know if he means Explorer 1 or Explorer 2 or any Explorer, but I think titanium Explorer could be pretty great.
I haven't seen or listened to the episode yet, I have to say, but I have to.
Okay.
I will do so this
You
week.
may want to keep it that way.
Oh, no, I don't know.
Really, Thomas? Really?
But yeah, I would love to see a wide dial GMT Master.
Wouldn't want to air out any dirty laundry. All right, perfect.
This is my last time on Fratello Talks. Bye-bye.
No, it's all good. Perfect. Hey, well, thank you guys so much. Thank you to our audience as well for sticking with us for 100 episodes. Here's to 100 more, and yeah, I guess in 100 more, potentially answering questions once again. Let's see.
And perhaps there will be a Titanium Explorer in
By
100
then,
episodes from now.
Who knows? That'll have to
knows?
be probably another 2 years or so. So a lot can happen. A lot can happen. Perfect. Thank you guys again. And of course, tune in next week for another episode of Fratello Talks. See you then.